When we decide we want something big, wealth, a perfect relationship, massive career success, our default human setting is to immediately obsess over it. We map out the outcome, we lock our eyes on the prize, and we start sprinting. But strangely, the harder we push for these specific targets, the more the treadmill starts to tilt backward. The problem is rooted in how we categorize what we want. By treating the goal as a rare, highly important prize to be won through relentless struggle, we accidentally place it on a psychological pedestal. We position the desire far above our current selves. This creates what physicists and behavioral researchers call excess potential. Excess potential is a state of severe energetic imbalance that occurs when you assign entirely too much importance to a single object or outcome. By looking up at the goal, you are broadcasting a very specific belief that this object is completely unequal to your current identity. Nature hates imbalance. When you create a massive gap between who you are and what you desperately need, that gap generates immediate systemic resistance. The tension snaps, and the resulting friction actively pushes the outcome away from you. It reveals a highly counterintuitive mechanism. The sheer desperation of wanting something is the exact force that guarantees you will repel it. The tighter you grip the outcome, the faster it slips. Achieving a difficult goal isn't about doubling your effort to climb up to the pedestal. It requires dismantling the pedestal entirely, so the thing you want sits on the exact same level as the person you already are. The immediate fix to this imbalance is normalization. You have to make the possession of your desire feel as entirely mundane and routine as waking up and brushing your teeth. I learned this the hard way on my own channel. A few years ago, I decided I needed to secure a massive audience, and my strategy was to artificially elevate my identity. I tried to emulate the authoritative energy of massive stagecoaches, thinking that was the only valid blueprint for success. I looked at figures running incredibly complex, large-scale live events. To match that aesthetic, I completely abandoned making the simple, educational whiteboard videos I actually enjoyed, and forced myself into an exhausting schedule of hot-seat coaching. I was entirely focused on the outcome. I needed the events to generate high-value content, and I needed that content to generate viral views. Because I was desperate for the result, I built massive internal resistance, and my actual attention on the platform completely stalled out. The pivot happened when I let the outcome go. I completely dropped the desperate need for views. I returned to my natural passion for teaching, grabbed a notebook, and focused strictly on the daily practice of explaining concepts. I made the process itself the fun part. I had actually seen this exact pattern years earlier while working a commission job selling shoes. The days I obsessed over hitting a specific daily dollar amount, I struggled. When I shifted my focus to simply having fun, connecting with people, and adding value to their day, I became a top seller. Prioritizing your daily actions over the final reward acts as a psychological pressure release valve. Once you stop squeezing the process for a specific result, the resistance vanishes and the success flows in easily. To understand why this process-oriented approach works, we have to look at the underlying mechanics of how outcomes are actually selected. Think of it as a quantum radio dial. Infinite parallel potentials exist simultaneously. You don't manufacture a timeline. You simply turn your internal frequency dial to select one. Tune that dial through outer intention, aligning your desires with others' needs, rather than operating from ego. You select a frequency where everyone wins. I put this to the test in the highly competitive rental market of Las Vegas. I found the perfect house, but I was up against a large stack of competing applicants. Instead of projecting a desperate need to win the lease, I applied outer intention. I sent a letter to the owners focusing entirely on their peace of mind, explaining I worked quietly from home, had no pets, hosted no parties, and treated property with respect. Internally, I didn't visualize a lottery-winning moment of getting the keys. I visualized the absolute most mundane version of living there. I imagined going through my normal morning routine and brushing my teeth in that specific bathroom. Treating a massive desire as a boring, pre-existing fact removes the pedestal entirely. It perfectly aligns your frequency with that reality, making you the most logical, natural recipient of the outcome. At this point, you make the internal shift. You drop the importance, you focus on the process, and you look around. But your physical reality hasn't changed yet. This is because of the mirror delay. Your current physical world has momentum built up from years, sometimes decades, of your past thoughts and actions. When you change your internal expression, the reflection takes time to catch up. The gap between your new mindset and your physical reality is where most people fail. They look at the delay, they panic, and they immediately revert back to their old, desperate patterns of forcing the outcome, which resets the entire process. Think about a houseplant. If a plant isn't sprouting fast enough, can you physically pull on the stem to make it grow? You can't. You only have control over the daily inputs. You can adjust the water, ensure the soil is rich, and position it in the sunlight. The natural intelligence of the system handles the actual growth. Your goals operate on the exact same logic. You cannot force a promotion, a viral video, or a perfect relationship into existence. You can only engineer your daily inputs, maintain your frequency, and trust the systemic lag. The main reason we get stuck staring at the mirror delay is the negative meaning we assign to the waiting period. We assume that because the reality hasn't updated yet, we are actively failing. We live in an environment flooded with shortcuts and regurgitated text, where everything feels artificial. But true, internally generated meaning requires authenticity. It requires you to express who you actually are, without applying the heavy baggage of your past failures to your current situation. The biological reality is that your cells are continuously dying and regenerating. From a purely physical and psychological standpoint, you are a new person every single day. By stripping away the tired meanings you assign to your past and refusing to put your future desires on a pedestal, you become free. You can place your entire focus on the daily present process. When you stop frantically checking the mirror and instead fall in love with the work right in front of you, the things you want will naturally arrive. And the best part is, by the time they do, you won't desperately need them anymore because you're already enjoying the life you have.